All right, if I could call the...
I'm just bringing it up for you.
Okay, one moment.
Yeah, I'll do the big one for you. Thank you.
Could you hear that slurp on the... Good.
Can I just tell you something? He hears...
All right, I would like to please call a special meeting of the Cumberland Fire District to order. Would we please stand for a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance? And during our moment of silence, if we could think about firefighter Chris Borges and our loss that we are experiencing with Chris. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we begin the meeting, Chief, we're all aware that Chris Borges' wake is next Monday night, next Monday.
Monday, September 10th.
Correct. From 5 to 8?
Yes, but we are forming, the fire department is forming at 4 o'clock. So if you can make it for 4 o'clock, we are going in ahead of the normal visitation hours and before the surrounding departments. Okay. So anybody that can form with us at 4 o'clock will be welcome to join us at that time. After we go through, town officials will be escorted in, and then surrounding departments that show up for the wake is the schedule of events right now. And hopefully we have all of our members through before the general viewing hours are opened up at 5.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, do you want us to wear our badges with the black
Sure.
bands? We all have a badge?
I do have a badge.
You do? Vince? I have one I can loan you from a different district. No one's going to know the difference. Do you want, is that okay?
I probably won't wear my badge because I don't have clothing heavy enough
all
to...
I have is a suit. If we don't all have them, we're going to look different, so...
And I don't know if anybody
Dana, you're not going to wear yours?
plans on attending the funeral service. That will be just at St. Aidan's, so you could go directly to St. Aidan's. And then the collation is at the Public Safety Union Hall, 7 Cray Street, after the service is completed at Resurrection Cemetery. But the Union Hall will be open following the Mass for surrounding departments and dignitaries that are not going to the cemetery with the procession.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Chief, you're going to send
Yeah, we got
form,
it. It's in the mail. Email.
Oh, it's in the mail?
Email.
Okay.
I'll follow up again tomorrow. Now that everything is definitive, there was some open-ended issues that we were waiting on the family to make the final arrangements, because not only is the fire department involved, the Classic Car Club and that he belonged to wants to have a participation in the event. So it was a matter of getting all parties to an agreeable place as to how everybody was going to fit into the ceremony and it still be respectful.
So we're meeting where? No. Funeral home here?
Funeral home.
Down at...
Yeah, Duffy. J.J. Duffy. 4 o'clock, 757 Menden Road.
Have you mentioned a bus, what was that, for the funeral? To stage at Cray Street?
The bus on anybody that wants to go to the funeral, we have Durham has graciously donated 2 buses, one to take all of our off-duty members, retired members, and dignitaries from Forecourt's parking lot to Duffy, and then to St. Aidan's. The second one is just shuttling the surrounding departments from the monastery grounds into St. Aidan's on the day of the funeral, and then back after the service.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. I forgot to take a roll call. So if you would kindly indulge, please. Commissioner Ashenbaugh?
Yeah.
Commissioner Jones?
Yeah.
Commissioner Santoro?
Here?
Commissioner Hogan is not here. Commissioner Pacone? And Commissioner Scullin? 6 are present. All right. The reason we are here is to discuss the SAFER grant and take a vote on acceptance or not. So I have read the grant itself, and I was a little confused. It was not clear as to how much money in some of the paperwork that we had received. So I'm going to turn this over to the chief because he has all the gory details.
Okay. So to start off, we wrote a SAFER grant for the purpose of hiring 2 personnel that would be floaters, not assigned to any particular shift, but to fill in for long-term absences. Now, in fiscal 18, we had a crush with a large scale of IODs for extended period of time. Looking back and not knowing how the grant would be fashioned, I decided, after conversations with the chair, that we would try for 2 people to see how it worked. If we were successful in getting a grant that had the conditions that were acceptable to the board. So we wrote it for 2 people under the guise of softening the overtime costs to the district. And that's the pure intent for it. Now, there are some districts, some departments that had grants awarded and they had to increase their table of organization by the number of employees that they had grant requested for. In our case, that is not one of the conditions to our grant. Under the 3-year period of the grant, those 2 floaters can be used to offset overtime, and at the end of the grant, one of 2 things can happen. They can be retained, they can be used to fill vacancies, or they can be laid off. But during the 3-year period of the grant, we must maintain 52 personnel and 2 SAFER grant personnel for a total of 54 personnel. So without the mandate of adding to the table of organization, I thought it was worthwhile bringing it to the board so that we could go over some numbers to see just if we wanted to move forward with this. So in your packet is the project description is basically what we put in for. Now, there's been some conversations that Commissioner Jones alluded to me today that we were hiring deputy chiefs for each shift, and that is not the scope of the grant. The scope of the grant is to hire 2 firefighters to offset overtime on shift personnel. You realize that we had a large amount of overtime, and in an effort to shrink the overtime cost and to get some buffer in our budget, the only practical way would be to get free money outside of the tax levy. And this is about the only grant that we could come up with the possibility of doing that. So the large sheet, the 8.5 by 14, is a breakdown right out of the budget that Beth uses on a weekly basis of everything that an employee occurs that costs the district money. So the first year, the top line, the 48,805, is the probationary period salary of the employee, and all the numbers that run across that line are associated with the cost of the salary, other than medical and dental. The second year and the third year, for comparisons, we just use this year's salary. We use the salary this year, the fiscal 19, and we know this is going to probably go into, by the time we execute this, it will probably be 19, 20, and 21 fiscal years, because I can't get anybody into the academy until February. So we'll be coming to the end of this budget, so we'll probably be ending in fiscal 21 with this. We didn't put any increases in, and we didn't put any decreases in. We just stayed level for a comparison number. So we have the salary, which is staying the same. I know we're in a negotiations year. Salary can go up, medical can go up. There was just so many variables that we decided to stay as is so that we could use known numbers to make a decision. So what happens is when you add year 1, 2, and 3, the cost for one employee for 3 years is $305,321. Now, in the press release, it was alluded to that we had a 75, 35% 3-year disbursement by Senator Reid. That might have been some of the other award recipients. For us, it's a straight dollar amount each year of $57,704. So what that equates to for our particular instance is a 62% funding the first year and 54% for years 2 and 3 because of the straight dollar funding. And that's on the summary award. So with that, with the 2 grant awards, the total grant, the total cost is $610,000, of which $303,879 is offset, which brings $306,763 cost to the district for the 3-year grant award, or $102,000 per year that we have to come up with. Now, where we would come up with that would probably be the savings in the overtime budget. So we have to look at the 102 that we're going to save over the expense if we don't have these particular men hired. That's on the smaller sheet, the Safer Grant worksheet. So the average overtime rate is approximately $41 an hour, and we would be offsetting 84 hours of overtime a week. So that's 2 personnel that average out, even though they work 2 24-hour shifts over the course of 52 weeks, it averages to 42 hours a week. So the weekly overtime cost would be $3,444. I use 50 weeks instead of 52 because there's some vacation time that's allowed in there. So the yearly overtime cost is $172,200, of which $102,000 is what we have to pay for. So realistically, the net savings per year to us is $69,946 for each. No, that's total. That would be total. Yeah.
If I believe that line item was a $1.1 million line item.
Overtime was, yeah.
Yes. That's the line you want to work from?
Yes.
Okay. So would... Oh, yeah, sorry. So, Chief, or whoever would know this, would this require us to do a budget change, have 2 meetings and have 2 votes, or all of that type stuff, or if we approve this,
I defer to the chair, to the council.
the money's already in the account.
It depends on when it takes place and how big of because you're saying they're not even going to go to the academy until February?
Correct.
So we might not even be using this money until
February.
the next fiscal year. Well, I don't know. I mean,
Well, we'd have to
I
pay-
can't,
yeah.
I can't answer it right now. It depends on how big of a,
Well, the other side of it is, before we even use that money, we have $100,000 left of the TAN. Why don't we just use that money up first?
that's all paid back. There's no more TAN.
No, the
There's
10
no
is
more
all paid
TAN.
back.
TAN's
All
paid back.
500,000?
Yeah.
Because I thought
Yes.
last month on the financial report, I saw 100,000 on the asset side still sitting there. Unless she paid the whole 500,000 off.
No, the 10 was paid,
Okay, so that's gone.
Yeah, they didn't borrow the full 5.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't borrow the full
Which was
5.
just 400?
It
400?
was paid off in a 10, you can't
Okay,
do
good.
that again.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's gone.
It's
Okay.
closed account. Can't
So-
steal it.
No stealing from the TANs. No.
All right.
Borrowing.
So you'd
the
like
10
to...
is just a short-term loan.
I understand.
That's not, a 52-week loan. That was a 30-day loan.
I'm just trying to...
That's how the 10 is constructed.
I'm just trying to figure which budget line item, and I'll defer to legal counsel, we would be best to use. I mean, I'm all in favor of this. This is great. I think getting a safer grant, I give you a lot of credit, and the chairwoman for initiating this, getting 2 more firefighters, and I wonder if you've considered, I think we discussed this briefly, you and I in private, the lateral transfers and avoiding the time delay and getting two...
I haven't got that far yet, because I don't
Okay.
even know if we're going to exercise this proposal, so...
Okay. If
But
we,
that would come at a later date if we so choose to move forward.
I mean, getting the bodies into the stations as soon as possible would be,
Well, the good news is,
well, the thing is, if a lateral transfer, as opposed to having them go, the academy is what, 12 weeks?
yes,
Yeah, I mean, that's a 3-month delay from February, March, April, as opposed to getting somebody in here at the end of January.
Yeah, but that's next year.
Next year, I
I
know.
might not even be here.
Oh, I may not be here.
Right, I know I will be.
Well, you resigned, yeah, you just chose not to be here, but, I mean, Dana, and I'm just talking about for the chief. How soon do you want these firefighters here? And if we were, I mean, personally,
well, when we first started writing this, I was still deep in IODs.
yes.
October 1st, I have 1 more coming back that was out long-term, so I'm only going to have 1 long-term IOD at this point.
Yes.
The necessity for the meeting tonight is I have the board has 30 days to accept or reject the proposal. So rather than wait till the 29th day and make a rush decision, I would just as soon vet it properly so that we can, look at all numbers and see which way we want to go.
I think it's a no-brainer. Personally.
Just a question on the element section. On the NFPA 1710, that specifies minimum amount on duty to a structure fire, is that correct? That's the standard
Which one are you on?
on element number 1.
Yep.
NFPA 1710, that, just to clarify, is demanding requirement recommended for a structure fire basic response. Is that
Correct.
Okay. So this would, the 2 extra people would get us closer to that goal, theoretically. Like if one wasn't being used...
I can't use extra because
Right.
it's not, there might be a day that one company is riding 4 people, but I'm not sure what day that's going to be and if we have a structure fire on that day.
Right.
This is basically used, the whole structure was to keep on a long-term injury a consistent person with that crew so that continuity could be built rather than 2 different people each day filling an overtime shift.
Understood. Thank you.
Chief,
Yes.
now, to implement this program, is there any agreement with the union that we would need?
The first year probationary employees are not covered by the union, so we would have a year to negotiate an agreement with them. I'm sure they would want to have input on 2 additional personnel. I have not spoke with them on this. Again, you know, like the lateral transfers, I didn't broach the subject because I don't even know if we're moving forward with it or not yet.
Oh, I know you haven't talked to them, but
Yeah.
we would eventually have to get.
Yeah,
come to
it
some-
involves manpower, and yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in follow-up to that question by Commissioner Scullin, if the board were to approve this, and we're pre-contract expiration now, what would happen if you started them in the municipal academy in February, and then we couldn't come to an agreement? I mean, is there a escape clause?
I think the escape clause is we would have to pay back all of the federal grant money we received up until that point.
Okay.
So if we received,
$54,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
or 108,000 for the first year, besides paying the employees, we'd have to pay the 108 back. We wouldn't be able to recoup the money that we paid the employees.
Okay.
Are you saying that the union wouldn't accept them?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't want to get too much into that conversation, but I just, in follow-up
But
to...
there would
we had
have
a
to be
good-
some kind of understanding and
Very good
contractual
question.
language to cover it.
Right.
Yeah.
How could they not?
Well,
There could be
again,
1,000 reasons why they don't like it, or there could be 1,000 they do like it. You still have to sit with them and come to an agreement. It's
Yeah, what their
manpower.
what their classification would be they be considered floaters? Would they be considered, I don't know what other, most communities refer to them as floaters because they're not on a set shift.
Without-
Or would they
I-
mandate that they go to a set shift?
I also just want to say, again, not too much conversation about this, because neither I nor Labor Council has looked at the contract. You might not need their, I don't know. You may not need their approval. So let's just keep that.
For the first year,
Yeah.
for the first
Okay.
year, they're not covered, so they're used at will. That might be the term, as an at-will employee. But, again, during the grant period, they can't be used as part of the current 52. They have to be extra from the current 52. After the grant period, they could fill, openings in the future.
Chief, would there be any other costs associated with hiring 2 extra firefighters? Hiring costs, training costs, extra equipment, anything like that we'd have to factor in?
A training cost is the only thing that's not in here, and that right now is, at the academy is, I believe it's $2,500 per employee, which is much more cost-effective than trying to do it in-house and paying it's just a whole much better program at the academy. Okay. So that 25, that would be 5,000 that is not in any of these sheets. Okay. But whether we use a Safer Grant employee or we hire our regular employee, that 2,500 is still going to be paid to the academy. So okay. That is like a neutral cost for any hiring.
Okay.
Chief, now, I don't know how the Safer Grants work. During this 3-year period, if we had a regular opening, could one of the Safer Grant firefighters take that opening and we bring on somebody else under a Safer Grant? Or would we have to, they would be excluded from a permanent job until the 3 years is up?
They would be excluded. They would be excluded from the permanent position, but they wouldn't be lowered in seniority. So if we hired the 2 Safer Grant people, they would take, we'll say, number 51 and 52 on the table of organization. If someone retired everybody would move up. The next person hired, although we would be paying them in full, they would be number 52, and 51 would become 50, 52 would become 51. So the seniority would
Wouldn't
hold.
affect their seniority,
Yeah.
but they
The
wouldn't
seniority
they wouldn't be
would hold-
guaranteed a full-time job at the end of the...
They're not guaranteed a full-time job.
Well,
That's
I
one
don't
of the
know.
stipulations. Once the 3-year period is over, we can choose to do whatever we want. Retain them, use them to fill vacancies at that time, or lay them off.
Okay, so the seniority only comes into play if we decide to keep them.
Yes,
If we decide not to keep them, then the seniority means nothing.
correct.
Okay.
And kind of going off that, they'd still be at-will employees, I would guess. So what if one of them were to accept a position somewhere else during that 3-year term? Would we be able to replace them at that point, or?
That's a very good question, and I do not have that answer. But I will call the agent and find out.
Okay.
Because you've seen what's transpired with jumping department to department lately, yeah. I will email our representative tomorrow and get the answer out to the board as soon as I get a response back.
So, on the SAFER grant, if we do vote in favor, can you walk us through the process of what happens next? Like, once we approve it, do you put an application in the paper that we're accepting SAFER grant firefighter applications?
That's the next process. And I am still working with Woonsocket, Salesville, and Smithfield, who have all been awarded SAFER grants, to see if they want to do one general aptitude test, and then after we weed out the people that don't pass the aptitude test, then we can go and just, like, we need 2 people, so we could interview from a candidate pool of 5, rather than, if we administer our own test, 30 people pass, we have to give an oral exam to 30 people for 2 positions. So I'm tying people up for like 3 and 4 days compiling these numbers, where if with 2 positions, the standard is usually 5 or 6 for 2, 3 for 1, 5 or 6 for 2. I could just look at the list, and the additional thought that we had is to have a column. Do you only wish to test for one department, or do you wish to test for multiple departments? And if they wish to test for multiple departments, in answer to your question on that, it would be, if you're selected, you must maintain for the period of the grant with the department you select, if we go with that testing. That probably would get challenged at some point, because we're kind of making our own rules there, but we could try it and see what happens. But regardless of what our thoughts were between the fire chiefs, I still will get that answer for you. So just to get the written test done, because it's probably going to be the same applicant pools that take these tests throughout. So we get the written done, scale our additional information in that we need, whether we want level 1, firefighter level 1, level 2, cardiac, or if we mandate that they have a certificate from the, whatever parameters we put, then we can score our candidates and then select from that score. Once they're hired, we're going to assume, and I'm going to assume, because of the amount of hires in the last 3 years in Rhode Island, that there is nobody that has a current municipal fire academy certificate. They would go to the next class, which I've already put a tentative hold for 2 seats in the next class. That would start in February. It runs for 12 weeks. Then they would be on a 12-month probation when they get out of that academy. If in any time during that 12 months they're unsuccessful, they can be terminated. On that, we're not responsible to pay back the federal government. On a voluntary leave, I'm not sure, but on a termination, I know we don't have to reimburse the funds.
And
So-
you're not required to go to your regular list you already have of people who've tested in the past. Like your current list you have maintained, you don't
They've
have...
all gotten hired.
What's that?
The 10 people that I had on the list that was left from
Yep.
18 months ago
Yep.
have all taken jobs somewhere.
Okay.
So we have no list right now.
And we have no list right now.
We have to always have a list. We're required to have a list, I think.
This isn't going to be an easy process. The city of Cranston, which is one of the highest paid, is out recruiting for candidates to take their exam. They can't get enough candidates to fill their projected vacancies.
Yeah, see, they've got billboards all around Cranston.
Yeah.
They're going big time.
The people that have come into Cumberland, how many have we lost? I think you and I talked, we lost 3?
No, we've lost 5.
5?
Yeah.
In the last 3 years?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
And how many have come in? Bill?
From other departments?
Yeah.
1.
Just 1?
Yeah.
Just Bill? And obviously, how much of a bigger of a effect do you see the negotiations for the new contract? We can't predict that. It's the future. No one can read the future. So. All right.
That's speculatory.
Yeah, so-
I can't answer that.
Personally, I'm in favor of the SAFER grant. Just say it ahead. I think it's going to be a good idea. I'm not sure what Dana was talking about earlier in the day about with the deputies or whatever you were referring to, but one possible outcome would be getting the deputies that we have currently riding on the rigs off the rigs and back into their deputy chief's role.
That question, Paul, was before I had how this grant was applied for. That was well before.
I see.
It was nothing to do with this, really about this discussion. Until I read how the grant's written.
Okay.
Thank you.
If I could ask you all, because this is not an easy decision to make, because there are certain constraints to the grant that we have to follow, and a few of you have brought up some great points about that concern. So indulge me, please. Let's take a look at the pros and cons. So what would be the pros of accepting this grant? Just put them out there.
Get 2 extra firefighters. Someone goes down and get somebody to fill it.
Good, okay. That's it?
What else do we need?
We'd see a savings of $69,000 a year,
The first year,
potential.
yeah, the first year, and I basically used a 2% increase in the second and third year in cost. So the second year savings would be 68.5, the third year savings would be 67.1, for a total savings of the grant period of $205,672. Over the 3-year grant, that it would be directly related to the offset of the overtime.
One of the things that I heard you say, which I would consider a pro also, is the consistency on the
apparatus,
On the
yeah.
apparatus.
The same person being in the same seat with the same crew on a regular basis.
Right. So that would definitely be a pro. Anything else?
Well, Chief, would that necessarily be true all the time? Now, we're on 4 platoons, they would only cover 2, but if we had a vacancy on the other one, would they be moved to another platoon?
If it was a long-term vacancy and the platoon that they were on was just short-term, yes, they would be moved to the long-term. And they could be in one place for 6 months, that person could return to duty, another person could go out with a similar long-term injury, and they would just move over to the next position.
Sort of like a substitute teacher.
Similar.
So the other thing is, if nobody's hurt, everybody's working, these two guys ain't working, right?
They would be working because there's still vacation time, personal time, and personal sick time that members would be taking. You got to realize there's 12 people assigned to the shift, and there's 12-man minimum. So as soon as one person is out for whatever reason, it's an overtime.
Okay.
These people would be used to stop that overtime cost.
And here's, you know, in my public education world, if there were no vacations or anything available for some ungodly reason, that would give us an opportunity to maybe do a community activity, and they can cover, you know, we can send firefighters out into the community and, you know, check everybody's smoke alarms and do public education during that time when everybody's working.
I mean, if everybody was healthy and working and nobody was out, I could bring them in on one of the fire marshals that are on shift, have them work that shift and bring a fire marshal in to help us get caught up on some of the things that are lacking right now in the fire prevention area, because there's a lot of building going on, there's a lot of resales going on, and there's still all the liquor license inspections, there's still the code enforcement on a daily basis that we get reports of violations that have to be followed up, along with the lengthy conversations with insurance companies when there's a loss. That goes on hours, especially when it's a delicate situation where it could be the insurance company pays or not pays.
Any other pros? All right, let's look at the cons.
Well, one of the key pros would be, if it doesn't work, in 3 years, we lay them off and it doesn't cost us anything after that.
I don't know who that's pro for, though.
Well, it's for the district, but then again, we got to factor in that we're going to do that, we're going to have to pay unemployment insurance.
Right.
Because we
And
currently,
also,
we currently don't pay that, so.
you know, in 3 years, there may be retirements that they can just walk into a position too. So we don't know what's going to happen in 3 years. So, you know, we might lose them, but maybe we won't. But you're right. Okay. All right, any other pros? Cons?
I don't see anything wrong with it.
Okay.
Well, it's still a budget issue. We're already at 4%, so we're gonna have to cut something to make sure, well, we gotta, hopefully, it balances out with overtime, but.
Well, that's my hope. And that would be my hope.
I think we'll see a decrease in injured on duty this year for some reason.
I have a gut feeling. It's a contract year.
No, you can't say that.
I shouldn't say that. I take it back.
That's not an appropriate statement. Injuries don't happen by when contracts expire.
Yeah.
Injuries
Retract
happen
that.
by mechanisms
Retract that
that
statement.
hurt
Please do.
individuals.
Yeah, that was not
As
a
I've
good
learned
thing to
in
say. Yeah.
courts all week, retract the statement. Is that what they say, Kelly? Is that the legal term? Withdrawn?
Withdrawn.
Withdrawn. Withdrawn.
Any other cons?
Hopefully, we'll see less injuries. And we budgeted a lot more. 1.1, we doubled the budget for injuries.
Well, if we don't come to an agreement with the union how to handle years 2 and 3 with the personnel,
That's going to be problematic. You're right.
But again, we don't even know what the contract allows. It might allow for this. So I don't want to assume that it doesn't allow for it. We don't know.
I don't have that answer.
Yeah, I don't either.
Well, there was a section.
I don't think we need to talk about that now, though. I don't think it's appropriate.
I'm just looking for cons.
Yeah.
Cons.
What would cause us, because I think that we really need to take a look at this, because, on the one hand, we've got 2 extra firefighters, but on the other hand, it could be a potential budget issue.
Well, one con is dealing with the union, like Jim brought up. Will they accept, or?
Yep, we already got that down.
Oh, okay. Cons.
So, can I just ask another question, Madam Chair?
You may.
It's got to be some savings, because when you say 69,000, every time someone has, say there's no injuries, let's hope there's no injuries, but there's still going to be vacation.
Correct.
Right.
So, I mean, there's got to be some you're guaranteed some savings, correct?
Oh,
It might not be all 69,000 of it, but it's going to be...
There will be savings, yeah, because you're using an employee at straight time rather
Yeah.
than at 150% or time and a half.
Yeah.
However
Right.
you want to refer to it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, maybe not the whole 69, but a large portion of that is virtually guaranteed, I would think.
We also want to probably factor in too that if the guys know that there's someone that can easily take their place, they're more likely to take their vacation time and their time off when
Or sick
when they want to,
time,
or sick time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they need to, and they're not fatigued. And I like the fact that you put that in there. The fatigue factor could be contributing to some of these injuries, and if we have less fatigued firefighters, they're healthier and better able to do their jobs as opposed to potential injuries.
Yeah.
So I think that's another pro.
Chief, what's the date we have to respond to the grant program?
September 23rd.
Okay.
Which falls just short of our next meeting. So,
Well, that's why we have this meeting. Any other cons that anybody can think of?
Having to wait. I mean, the overall concept cons?
Right.
I think, like Archie said, none.
Okay.
Well, the other potential is one of these firefighters goes out long-term.
it's a very good point.
Then
The day we bring them on, they're a liability. And, if they got hurt, in their first year, we could say that they didn't complete their training, and therefore they haven't successfully passed their probationary period. And I'm sure they might have a legal counsel that would fight us, but I don't know what kind of ground we would stand on. I know City of Providence just had an unfortunate injury in their training academy, and that person was told, you're out. They brought somebody else. They just moved the whole class up one notch. So I know there is case history out there where it's been done. I would probably, need counsel to look at the language that their probationary employees sign when they come on to see if it's stiffer than what we use, but
I think
it's a possibility.
I think, Chief, I only remember this because one of our classmates, Kelly, his brother, he died in the Lincoln Police Department Academy, and I actually, unfortunately, treated this man as I did CPR on him. And this was before med school. And Lincoln Police Department challenged us in court. He was a probation member in the academy in Lincoln, and they had to accept him as a full-time employee because the family was fighting all of this back there. So that was obviously 1989, 90, 30 years ago. So, like Jim says, it was a different situation. He was a police cadet in the academy who got heat stroke and died. And the family was told the same thing. They
Let's
weren't.
not hope
So,
that some of this-
let's hope it's not gonna. Let's hope it's not gonna happen. But
Yeah.
obviously, it's a good point you bring up.
They get heat stroke in February, they got bigger problems than
Yeah.
that should have been apparent before we hired them.
Yeah, this was tragic.
And again, I'm not sure what we're going to get for candidates either. As I said earlier, there's just been so many hirees in the last 3 years in the state. There isn't a groundswell of volunteer firefighters that are looking for full-time jobs. And if you talk to the volunteer chiefs, they're struggling just as badly as we are because they're not getting the volunteers to come in to their ranks anymore. So.
Quick, let's institute a firefighting academy for high school seniors real fast, right now.
It would be awesome if they had it, if the tech schools were teaching firefighting in tech schools.
Yep.
Do they have that anywhere in the country? Wouldn't
They
that be,
do.
Wouldn't it be fantastic?
In Massachusetts, they do.
It would be wonderful. Like nursing assistant, firefighter, technology.
Yep.
You can graduate and boom.
Pentucket Regional High School has one. Mattapoisett Fire Department is working with Marion and one other community and has one after school only. They're using it in another way, but they've got...
Are those licenses transferable across state lines?
I'm sorry?
The national accreditations, right? Chief?
If someone from Massachusetts wanted to become a Rhode Island firefighter, they're welcome to do that. They'd have to go through the academy, right?
Correct, yeah. Or Connecticut would be the same.
Or Connecticut, yeah.
Because one of our guys that went from here back to Connecticut had to go through the academy again in Connecticut.
Yep.
Some things won't change.
Archaic. Any other
So-
cons? Oh, sorry.
Did you want me to get answers for if a safer member moves to another department during the grant period and the CBA question before you take action, or I would?
I'd rather
do you
vote.
wanna-
I'd rather vote tonight.
How do you want to move forward?
I would rather see a few more answers to some of the questions, because it's,
Oh, we have
still
to-
we're making a
we'd
commitment
have-
for the district, and
We'd have to meet again. We'd have to meet again before the 23rd, another special meeting. I don't think it would change the majority of our vote either way.
Can I have some input? Ben?
I know one of the
Commissioner
questions was
Jones?
mine, but it wouldn't, one way or the other, it wouldn't change how I would
How you would vote.
vote, so I think it'd be nice to know, but I don't, regardless of what the answer is, I think I would probably vote the same way.
Okay. Commissioner Jones?
Could we stipulate with our vote that if something really goes wrong as far as the answers are, that we give the chief authority to pull the plug or to at least back off and have another meeting, like if we approved it tonight with the stipulation that if one of those questions is not satisfactorily to our satisfaction answered or to our liking, is there a way of backing out of it?
You can, but you have to be pretty specific about what the answer's going to be, so that he knows. I mean, you can make conditions on any of your votes, but I would advise you to be specific.
What was the, Jim, what was the biggest that we could stipulate?
The biggest concern that you had was,
well, the financial impact, and if it doesn't pass muster with the collective bargaining agreement, and we can't come to an agreement, then we're gonna be on the hook for initial dollars in the first year, and then we're gonna have to let everyone go in year 2 and 3, and the payback will be on the district.
Or keep them. That would be the alternative. Keep them after year 3, right?
No, I'm talking about year 2 and 3, if we don't come to an agreement, if we can't work us into the...
After the first year of probation, they become union members.
That's why I don't even know, I haven't read the contract, and I'd asked for Labor Council's input. I don't know if we even need that input from the union. I don't know. We might, but we might not. So if you wanted to, if that's a really important question, then I would advise you to have another meeting, so I can find that out.
How does the union have that decision to make per the contract?
I don't know. That's exactly
How do you
what I'm
use
saying.
manpower?
Yeah.
What's
There's
that?
gonna be 2 extra guys, how are they gonna be used?
So how can they tell the chief that they can't use the firefighters?
But that's the whole point is, we don't know the answer to that question. So if you want the answer to that question, then in order to make this decision, then I would advise you to continue this conversation.
So,
If it's not that important to you, then you can vote tonight.
so in my opinion, this is another example of,
Don't say it.
no, I mean, the chief's the chief. If the chief says, these are firefighters, and I'm telling you, they're gonna, he's the commander-in-chief or whatever, he tells, these people work for me, and they're firefighters, and they're gonna
You gotta
work.
put your mic on.
Oh,
If the chief says, these are employees of the Cumberland Fire District, and they're going to work on Engine 1 and Engine 5 on Platoon 1, they work. And if the guys don't like, and they say, okay, well, they're scabs, or they're still going to pay union dues, because that's part of the contract no matter what, which I've read. And, he's the boss. The gold leaf man says, they're on the truck. Get along. It's the brotherhood of the fire trucks. When they're in the building, and these 2 guys go in and a fire starts, I can assure you, Dana, you've been a firefighter how many years? I can assure you, no one's going to care if they're union brothers or not. When it gets red and gets hot, they're not going to care about the union wording. They're going to care who's saving their life next to them. So I understand we want to be legally looking at every letter of that contract, but at the end of the day, I think it's more important, and I'm pretty sure that the union's going to want 2 more bodies to join their union at the end of the day. It's going to be 2 more votes to help them to get, I cannot see why they wouldn't want 2 more members of their union. Archie, you've been in unions. I mean...
Well, I can't understand why they wouldn't either, but...
I would stipulate that if legal counsel advises that we have to get the executive board to accept the SAFER grant members, if they say absolutely not, then we have a meeting 1 week from now, then I would say, okay, we come back a week from now. But it's getting a little bit ridiculous that we are undermining our chief's authority to assign firefighters to work as firefighters. And we have to keep paying lawyers to tell our chief what he can and cannot do. I'm sorry to, but that's the bottom line. He's the chief. He tells them where they go and what they do, and his men work for what he tells them to do. End of discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
But there's still a collective bargaining agreement.
Exactly.
And there's gonna be one negotiated next June, and they could be looking for coverages.
start the new contract anyways?
No.
February, April, May, June, right? They finish the academy, February, April, May,
Don't
June
you pay
1st.
them while they're in the academy?
Yes,
Yes.
So they start in February.
they start in February.
yeah, but the first year they're probationary.
Yeah.
So the union really doesn't control them. It's year 2 and 3.
Exactly.
Mr.
That we
Stone.
don't know if they control them.
Right.
That's the point
Correct.
that I've been making.
Yeah.
The probationary, they don't.
Right, but it's year 2 and 3. We're talking about year 2 and 3.
So that's worked into the new CBA. The new CBA is that the current contract does have nothing to do with these SAFER grant members.
Yes, it does. Well, not the current contract, but
The-
if you let them go by June 30th of next year, you have to pay the grant back, because right? Yeah.
The way I understand it,
Yeah,
yes.
you have to pay them back.
But
So,
how does the current CBA have anything to do With that's been in
doesn't.
there. Okay. So then why are we worried about the current CBA?
No, no.
You're not
affecting
worried
these
about the
people?
current CBA.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just observation, the police department had a program, CETA, remember that, Chief? Comprehensive point. But they hired like 6 police officers, and they're, over attrition, they were all absorbed onto the department. So to look in a crystal ball, this is what the program is for, to augment the fire service. So I'd vote in favor if it comes to a vote. Just let's get this thing going. It's free assistance from the feds.
Essentially free.
Essentially free, but it's help our community, augment 2 more personnel to rank and file. So overall, I would approve this if it comes to a vote.
Tonight?
Thank you.
Or in a week from now?
Can we just pass this with the stipulation that as long as that works with the contract that goes through?
So what I've been saying is that I don't know what the contract says now or what you're going to negotiate in June. So there's 2 different parts to this.
So if you can find out what the contract states now,
Right.
that these firefighters can be put on now.
Well, they can be, but that's a definite. It's just about what the next contract is going to say and whether we'd be paying them back if we had to let them go.
We can't worry about the next contract because that's out of our hands.
No, but there's a financial impact if you have to let them go.
Right.
Correct.
There is a financial impact if you have to let them go. And if you're willing to take that risk, then pass it. That's, I'm just telling you what might happen. So.
That's all new firefighters.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the firefighter that went to Providence, he had to pay us back.
You need to put your mic on.
We had a firefighter that joined. He went to Providence, and in his case, he had to pay us back for all of the stuff we gave him as training, his equipment, right, Chief? I'm just trying to give an example of.
He had to pay us back for his training. We never sized him
Yeah.
for turnout gear.
So in this case, the government's giving us a certain amount of money, and if he leaves, we have to pay the government back. It's a gamble either way. But I think the gamble was worth taking. I'm with Dana and with Archie.
What would the board like to do?
somewhat rationalize the scenario Mr. Santoro just put forward. If we didn't have the SAFER grant and we hired someone and they were with us for 6 months and left, we would pay them for the 6 months. They would have to pay us for any gear and training that we did, but they keep their salary. So if we let the grant go, we're basically doing the same cost to the district, except it's going to hurt because we're trying to offset a process and now we're
Right.
giving up on it. So
I make a motion we accept the SAFER grant as proposed by Chief Finley.
Okay, motion on the table to accept the SAFER grant by Commissioner Santoro. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Jones. Discussion?
Madam Chair, I'm going to be voting nay on this, just that there's still some unanswered questions that I think have a financial impact that could, hurt the district because we do have financial issues, so really, the gamble, if it all worked out, it's nice, but I think there are outstanding issues that could throw this thing out of kilter.
Yeah, there's definitely some risk associated with it, but I think regardless of the answers, I think that we're aware of the risk that could potentially be. And I would say at this point, we know what we're getting into, and we're going to have to pay a portion of it back if it goes horribly wrong. But I think on the other side, we have a lot of relief for not only the community, but our firefighters to add another 2 guys, so.
Commissioner Scullin, when I initially read the grant itself, the eligibility rules, what I was reading was that we couldn't use them to fill in for overtime. And when I looked at the cost, I was like, well, why are we even having this vote? Until I read what we were accepted for. So what we were accepted for was entirely different than what the initial RFP was. So I was really happy to see that, because I know that it will be really helpful to us to augment overtime costs with straight time personnel. So that to me is a huge win. And but there are always ifs in anything. You know, if the firefighter doesn't work out. Today, I was at the academy and someone had an injury. One of the recruits had an injury and they had to call an ambulance and take him to the hospital. These things do happen, and so anytime, if we were sending someone to the academy without a grant, there's always a potential problem. But I kind of like the fact that it could really work for us, budget-wise. Any further discussion?
I agree with you. I think that, we're getting some money to help cut the cost of this thing. I think it's worth a shot. And then after the 3 years, if everything works out, these guys can move on. If somebody retires, they just move into their spots.
And we just absorb them. Yeah. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go for a vote. Can we do a roll call, please? Commissioner Jones.
Yes. Approve.
Commissioner Santoro.
Yes.
Commissioner Archibald.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacone.
Yes.
Commissioner Scullin.
Nay.
And I vote yes. So the motion passes 5-1. All right, Chief. You got yourself a 3-year grant.
Okay. Thank you. So we can try again next year.
Excellent.
I will get the answers. As soon as I receive the answers, I'll get them dispersed to you.
Okay, thank you. That's what we would like to see. And solicitor, you will be looking at the contract just to...
Yeah, I'll make sure that you all understand if there are any implications.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion on the table?
No, you need public comment.
Oh, public comment. Any public comment? Oh. Make sure you state your name and your address, please. State your name and address.
Sure. My name is Mike Stekevich, 4 Abbott Run Valley Road, and so it's a done deal at this point. And I still have a question for the chief. To the extent to which we're rolling the dice on this, it seems to me that it is in fact a no-brainer if every day they walk in, these two, they're taking the place of someone who otherwise would be getting filled in with overtime. But if miraculously everyone was healed and no one got sick, then that money to pay their salaries would start to come out of taxpayers' pockets. Is that a fair assessment?
38% the first year, and 46% for year 2 and 3. Yes.
So there is a possibility that you would be adding to the taxpayers' burden if no one got sick, everyone healed miraculously, and so forth.
Well, there's still vacation time that
And so
is used, but
But
there is a possibility.
But I just want to know, as a taxpayer, if that's a pretty remote possibility.
Very remote.
Okay, so that it's almost certainly.
I could show you, daily logs that there's someone out for numerous reasons, besides IOD, whether it be family sick leave, vacation, on every shift.
So, okay, so their 40 hours a week should be no problem to fill that way.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other public comment? All right, is there a motion on the table?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Scullin to adjourn. Thank you. Seconded by Commissioner Santoro. All in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 6.